Alright everybody, welcome back for another tutorial. This one we are going to be doing the tutorial 2. So let's just bring that up here quick so you can kind of see the print and what it looks like. Okay. Alright, so this is what tutorial 2 looks like. This is what we are going to be making today. Essentially everything in here is exactly the same. Nothing really changes. The only addition to this is a 3/4 inch drill. Requirements to do this is you probably should have done tutorial 1 and exercise 1 first, and also there's a video on how to change your operation defaults. I will just brush on some of the things that we are going to change as far as settings in some of the toolpaths, but most of them should already be set for me because I already did that in a previous video. So if you have not checked out the setting operation defaults for Lathe video, please take a look at that before doing and starting this tutorial. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to X this out. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to select our lathe. And we're going to select our default. Oh, we already had it selected, so I can just delete this one. We don't want to leave doubles in there, so I'm going to delete that and just keep this first one. Okay, so next thing. Next thing I have here is I have this, this is kind of off or defaulting to a dark blue. I don't like that. I'm going to change that permanently. So to permanently change that, I'm just going to go into configuration and I'm going to go to my colors up here. And of course, all of these, I have to find the correct one, and it's telling me what it is up here. So I just need to find, I believe it's going to be wireframe, probably down at the end. Wireframe geometry, there it is. I'm going to change that to white. I want that to contrast, and I want it to always default to that. So if I set it in here, it will always come up every time I start a new folder or a new file. So I'm going to hit check. Yes, I do want to apply them. Okay. Alright, so now I am ready to start. If I look at my first geometry here, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this in straight lines, and then I'm going to add the chamfers and the fillets as I did in the last one. So I'm going to start by drawing a multi-line again, and I'm going to go 0, 0, enter, and then it looks like we're a ½ inch, so I'm going to go 0.5, 0, enter, and then 0.5, negative. In this case, it looks like that is 375 back, so I'm going to go negative 0.375, enter, and then we're going to go to 0.875, negative 0.375. Next is 0.875, negative, and in this case it looks like it is 875 back, negative 0.875. Okay, and then our next line is going to be 1.0, negative, looks like 1.25, enter. And that's going to create that little angle for us. Alright, and then we've got 1.0, negative 1.5. And then we've got 1.45, negative 1.5. And then finally 1.45, whoops, 45, negative 2.0, enter. And there is our final part, with the exception of the chamfer and the radius. So let's just add those in real quick. This one here is 0.25. Oops, that's not right. 0.125. There we go. That looks a little better, right? Okay, let's hit the blue check for that. I should hit the green check as well. And then we're going to put a chamfer on there of what appears to be 1/32. So our distance, and keep in mind if you have a fractional dimension, you can enter that. So I can enter 1 divided by 3/2, and it will automatically calculate a 32nd. So I'll just hit check, and there is my finished part. So now I am ready to go ahead and machine this. Okay, so the first step, of course, is to create my stock. I'm going to change this to the DZ plane, which I am working in. And properties, it looks like we're 1.4. I'm going to keep that at 1.75. I'm going to keep the length at 2 inches. Let's use a left margin of 2 inches. And let's use a right margin of 0.1, just so we have something to face off. This is for our jaws to hold on to. Today I am going to show you how to put the chuck jaws on. So I'm going to go to properties for the chuck jaws. And the easiest way to do this is these jaws are defined and they are perfectly fine. They do not match what we have in our Haas machines out there. So when you're simulating for a Haas, you will need to change these sizes to match what we have in the Haas. But that being said, I'm going to go from stock, which basically just tells it it's going to grip on the maximum diameter. So I'm going to click that, and it's going to grip on that 1.75 diameter. The grip length is how far from the back of the stock forward it is going. Now, my part is 2 inches long. I made my overall stock 4 inches long. Therefore, that means that I am going to be gripping, I'm going to have 3 inches of stock protruding from my jaws, the face of my jaws. That is important because when you go to cut the part off, you don't want to be too close to your jaws. That means there's a 1 inch gap. That is fine. There's a 1 inch extra of stock between my jaws and where I'm cutting it off. So that will be okay with me. So I'm going to hold on to 1 inch of this, and in fact maybe even a little more. I can probably get away with a ½ inch gap. So I'm going to make this 1.5. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit check and see what we get here. Alright, and as you can see, there are my chuck jaws. So I should be okay there, but if we need to, we'll change that later. Okay, so now let's start our tool paths. Alright, so the first tool path, of course, is our face. And it's telling me, yes, do I want to change my stock plane? The reason it's telling me that is because I probably don't have my WCS in this plane. So if I hit equals and my stock plane, check my stock plane. Alright, so they should both be DZ now. So they should be okay. Now it didn't give me that alarm. Okay, now like I said, I've already set my operation default. So basically I can just click right through a lot of these. Everything I will need is in there and it's already set. Oops, I forgot to select my tool. It helps if you do that. Select tool from library. Let's use my right-handed. Hit check. Okay. Alright, next I'm going to rough this part. So to rough it, I'm going to select the beginning of that chamfer and the end of this. Okay, once again I'm going to use this tool. And of course you can see my 50 thousandths is in there. Everything is already in there, including my lead out. So again, if you did not go through that setting up operation defaults video for Lathe, I recommend you stop now and go back and do that. It will make your life much, much easier. Okay, so everything's in there. All I got to do, even my use stock for out of boundaries in there. So I'm going to hit check, and it's finished. Use my finish pass. I'm just going to click last and hit check. And of course, I'm going to select a tool from a library for this, and I'm going to use this 35-degree diamond. Again, everything should be taken care of. Next, I need to drill this part. In this case, it looks like I have a 1/4 inch drill that is going 3/4 of an inch deep. So I'm going to select my drill. And when I select drill, it is always going to drill on the center, right on the center of the Z-axis. The only way I can drill off-axis is to use these face drill commands up here in the C-axis toolpath bar. So this was always going to drill down the center of the tool. So I don't have to worry about, the center of the part. So I don't have to worry about positioning my drill. Next, I am going to go to my select tool library, and let's find a reasonable spot drill for this. Oopsie. Here we go, spot drill. Let's do a 1/2 inch diameter, check. Okay, I'm going to slow that feed down to 0.005. And we are going to go to a depth. Now we need to figure out what our depth is going to be, and remember we want a little bit of a chamfer, so I'm going to do a 10,000th chamfer, which means the diameter of my hole should be 0.27, which means I need to take half of that for my depth. In that case, 270 divided by 2 is 0.135, so I'm going to make that 0.135. And I am going to turn off tip compensation for this because I do not want to compensate for my tip. Okay, everything there looks good, and I'm going to hit check. Next, I'm going to do another drill, and I'm going to select it from the library. And in this case, I need a 0.25 drill, which I have right here. So I'm going to select that one, and I'm going to make this one 0.005 thousandths feed as well. Remember, this is in inches per revolution. This is not in inches per minute now because we're dealing with the lathe. So it's an important distinction. Our depth is going to be 0.75, and actually it's going to be negative 0.75. It's important that you make that distinction. And our tip compensation, we're going to want that on for this. So I'm going to click that on. 3/4 inches, I probably want to take a bit of a peck drill here. In theory, I could do this without a problem. In fact, actually, I changed my mind. I am going to just do a drill because I can drill that without an issue. It's only 3 times D. And remember, the rule of thumb is basically about 5 times D is where we start pecking for our first, for the whole depth. So this looks good. So let's hit check, and it looks like we have what we want. Now I'm going to go back into this spot drill quick because I believe I forgot to put a negative, and of course I did, and hit check. Alright, so let's run this part and see what we get. And it looks like we've got a pretty good looking part there. We got a nice 10,000th chamfer on the front. All of our part is pretty good. So I am pretty happy with that. Now, I'm going to show you how to round these edges a little bit, because we don't really ever want sharp edges. So, in your lathe finish, if I come in here and I go over corner break, this corner break is actually going to put a small radius on there just to deburr that edge so it's not sharp. And I always like to do a radius for this one. So I am going to turn that on, and I'm going to do a 5 thousandths radius that will just break it a little bit. And there we go. So I'm going to hit check. And this angle, by the way, this is just what the min and max angle, so it won't break an edge that's too. It's in other words, it's not a sharp corner. If it's just a slight change in angle, it won't put this radius on there. That's our limits. So I'm going to hit check, and check. And as you can see, it looks like it's taking off a little bit of that corner. When we regenerate this, we'll take a look at that when after we cut it off. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a cutoff pass. And of course I got to pick my boundary, which is right there. And I need to select my tool. 125 right-handed groove. Check. Again, this part is pretty close to 1.5 inches. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to change this cutter. And I'm going to make that 1.0. Okay. Stock update. This is already changed because I put it in my operation defaults. As you can see, these things are already checked. I even already have a chamfer placed on the back side. So really all I need to do here is hit the green check. And that is it. Okay, so let's take a look at our part. First off, you can see there's a little bit of a radius on there. That's the edge brake that we put in. And of course we have our chamfer on the back side. And that is a good looking part. Completely finished. Let's just take a look. You can see the edge brake on there at 5 thousandths radius. So we are happy with that. That looks good. So that's all we have today. And of course you can see your stock or your jaws here. This is your jaws. It's going to show it going the whole way around, even though your jaws would only be in 3 places, equally spaced around the part, 120 degrees apart. It shows it as a full circle because remember they will be spinning, so that is an obstruction at every point around the part. So it shows it as completely cylindrical. So that's just the way it shows it. Don't sweat that if you don't think that looks right. That is actually correct. Okay, so I'm going to come out of there. I'm going to hit top. I hope that this demonstrated how valuable the operation defaults are. I could have clicked through this obviously a lot quicker, but I kind of slowed it down a little bit so I could explain a couple things. In any case, that's it for this lesson.